Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Wrong to Strong Chicago. My name is Omar Calvillo. I'd like to welcome my guest tonight. His name is Juan. This brother is actually joining us all the way from Tijuana, Mexico. So, welcome to the podcast, brother.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
It's an
and
honor to be.
yeah, thanks for being on here, man. I thank my brother for being patient with me. This is actually our third take tonight, trying to record. The first time we were talking and the audio sounded like a little bad, like muffled. So I told my brother, "Hey, man, we're gonna restart." So then we restarted. It sounded better, and I forgot to hit record, man. So I apologize to my brother for doing that, man.
Nah, it's okay. It's all right.
Yeah, so basically, I'm gonna hear his story three times already. Nah, but we're gonna go back to the beginning. All right, brother. Hey, man. No, I know right now you're out there in Tijuana, Mexico. But were you want to tell us like what part of Chicago you grew up in?
Yeah, well, I mean, I grew up actually like the majority of my life on 63rd Street by Spalding, and a small portion of my life by like Pilsen on Coulter and Horn. I was in Coulter and Horn from like 89 up to like 94, I believe, or 93, 94, around that time. I used to go to school at Emory's all the way up until like first grade where I graduated. Then we moved. My uncles used to be land kings from Coulter and Horn back in those days, and I guess it started getting really bad. So my grandma, she sold the building that she used to own where we all lived at. So after she sold the building, everybody just moved out, and my parents, they got a house right there on 63rd Street.
Okay. Hey, brother, could you tell us how were things in the family? How were things basically inside of the home?
Growing up, I mean, my mom did everything. You know, I mean, she did her best to keep her family together, but I guess my dad, I don't know, you know, I mean, my mom makes excuses for him saying that he didn't grow up with a nice dad. So my dad was a little difficult, you know, he used to beat on her and, he was very dry. He wasn't very, like, very attentive, to us. They both obviously worked all the time. We never really saw my parents. I used to be and my brother were the only ones that were always home. You know what I mean? We knew what we had to do, and all we knew is that we always had food in the house, and we always had cooked food. But I mean, my mom, she used to get home like at 9 at night, 8 o'clock. My dad used to work, a full time and a part time, so he was never home. So basically, like my brother is like the one that supposedly raised me, but he was never home either. Like he used to always go out, so in order for me not to go out, he used to always, whoop me and, hit me and stuff like that, or threaten me that if I left that, he was gonna hit me some more or worse.
Gotcha. Now, how much older was your brother than you?
My brother is like 3.5 years older than me. He's 3.5 years older than me.
Gotcha, man. Man, so you're going through this at home, and can you tell us like how were things like growing up in that area?
Well, I mean, 63rd, when I was growing up, I mean, there were always there was like, I grew up by the 2-6. I used to go to school at 66 in Holman by Eberhard. So like, I mean, at first, I mean, like in the 90s, mid 90s, I mean, I was never really into that gang banging stuff. That never really grabbed my attention. But all my friends eventually they started, like liking that lifestyle. So I started just hanging out with my friends, trying to, be like that. After a while, like, I mean, I never wanted to join any gang. But like the 2-6 used to always see me fighting, and they used to tell me that I had to join or that I had to hang out with them, but I never wanted to. So then they started, jumping me in school, and so I mean, pretty much I always just grew up fighting, with a lot of people.
Yeah. Hey, I know we were talking a little bit earlier. You were talking about how you getting like that abuse by your brother, by your dad. It basically led you to not want to hurt nobody. Could you share like a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, like, well, ever since I was a little kid, like, cause I used to always wake up, like when my dad used to rape my mom or beat on her, I used to wake up and I'll see my mom like crying in the living room. And I used to always just wanted to make her smile because I didn't like to see my mom crying. So ever since I've been at a very young age, like, I mean, I used to get molested like from my babysitter and my aunt when I was a little kid, and I used to be scared because at a young age I felt like that was normal. You know, I thought that me as a male, as a boy, I was supposed to be okay with that. You know, but deep inside, I didn't like it, so I never really like I never wanted to hurt anybody. You know, I never used to like bullying people or seeing people in need. You know.
Gotcha. Yeah, so basically, from your experience, like, man, I don't want to hurt nobody, right? Basically.
Yeah, I mean, cause like I don't know, like I mean, it's I now as an adult, now that I've been through what I've been through, it's an amazing gift, man, when you can feel someone's pain. Like you don't have to know them, but you can just feel that when they're sad, and you just want to help lift them up. You know what I mean? Especially when you yourself feel that you can relate. You know, like I always tell people, like even though that I will never understand a person's pain because I'm not feeling it. I can understand that at one point in my life I felt pain. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I don't I don't ever downsize anybody's past or anybody's you know past terrors or pains. You know, like I actually emphasize it. Like I feel it. You know.
Gotcha, gotcha. Okay, yeah, yeah. I know you mentioned like growing up there. The guys you see you fight, and they wanted you to join. And at first, you didn't want to join. You don't want to get into the gang. Could you share what basically leads you to eventually like join a gang?
Well, yeah, like I was like I told you, like I used to have to always get like after school. The two sisters used to always wait for me and jump me. They'll be like, "Oh, you're gonna join, or you're gonna hang," and I just tell them no. They'll just start jumping me, right? So I don't know, like the light bulb struck, and I realized that hey, you know what? If I stay on detention, they won't see me. So I always had detention. There was never a day I never had detention. I mean, I used to be scared when I'm like, man, I can't believe I haven't gotten detention yet. So I always found ways to get on detention. And so one day I guess they started, realizing that I was in detention. So one day I'll never forget, like when I met my friend Smiley. I always knew about Smiley. Smiley was older than me. I was when I was like in fifth grade. Smiley was like in seventh, I want to say.
Okay.
But like Smiley, you know, he was an outcast too. You know, the Tutsis didn't like him, but they never touched him or anything. And I'll never forget when one day I had detention, and I'm over here tagging, like I'm over here dishing the Tutsis on a piece of paper, and he saw me, he snatched it from me. And I got scared because I'm like, oh man, there's another person that's, and I knew I was scared of Smiley. He was someone I was scared of. I don't know
Right.
why, but I was just scared of him. And he asked me that while I was dissing them, I said I didn't like him, and he asked me if I gang back to him. That nah. So I guess he realized that I used to live on the other street from him, and he asked me like, "You're that little kid that lives on the other block from here?" I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, why do the Tutsis always want to pick on you?" I'm like, "I don't know, man. Like I don't like them." And they were right there sitting across from us, but not saying anything. So he just started smiling. He said, "Don't worry, man. I'm gonna walk you home from school." And ever since then, like Smiley was, he was like a big brother. He was that
Gotcha.
brother that my brother was.
Right. Yeah. So basically, he started to basically look out for you, huh?
Yeah, I mean, he used to always, like, walk me home, and he used to always tell me, that if I ever need anything, that just to always go knock on his door. And one day he invited me to hang out with him, and I did, because like I said, I never used to go out. I'll come home from school, and I knew that I had to stay home. I knew that if I got caught in the streets from either my mom or my brother, that I already knew I was gonna get a whooping. So I never left. But since he lived right across the street right behind the alley from me, I figured, I might as well sneak out. And I remember like he took me around his friends and around 59th Street, and I don't know, like I had like a sense of belonging. I felt like I was a likable person. Like since I was a little kid, I always thought something was wrong with me. Because I couldn't understand why my dad would be like that with me, or my brother, or my aunt, or situations like that. So when I met Smiley and his friends, I felt like I was normal.
Gotcha.
And I remember when I got home really late, and my parents were worried. And when they found out, they saw me coming in the house. Oh man, they whipped me so hard, man. They drew blood from me, and I remember like I was in bed crying, because I mean they hit me with extension cords and. But I couldn't like take off my mind, man. That joy that I felt when I was hanging with Smiley, and so then I just realized, you know what, I'm getting hit regardless, so I might as well just, might as well get something out of it. So I
Got
just started being more rebellious and hanging out with the fellas.
right, right, man. Yeah, that's crazy, man. Because you figured, no matter what, they're gonna find an excuse to give you a beating, huh?
Yeah, I mean, like to be honest, like I mean, I really knew. I mean, like my brother, he'll hit me and then leave the house. So I'm like, well, I'm getting hit regardless. So I mean, I might as well get my payback one way or another. So I started hanging with Smiley, and then eventually, the two six started noticing that I was hanging with them.
Okay. Now,
But they were,
can I ask you this? Now, Smiley, was he part of a gang or no?
yeah, Smiley was an SD from 59th Street.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so when they realized like that I was hanging out with Smiley, they thought I was an SD. But Smiley like never forced that on me. Smiley never told me I had to turn out. He never even mentioned like what he was or much. He never told me much about the SDs. I know he was an SD because I mean everybody knew it. But he never told me anything. And I'll never forget, man, the day of the point of no return. I was like 12 years old already. And one day, since I started noticing that the SDs will wear yellow, I started wearing yellow. And I remember my mom had bought me a hat. I don't remember what kind of hat it was, but she got it embroidered with my name in Old English, and I had the letters in yellow. And I'll never forget that one day I just walked out the house, and I used to always just go behind the alley because I mean he lived right behind the alley from me.
Right.
But I don't know, that day I felt a little brazen, I felt a little brave, so I decided to walk all the way around the corner. And I grew up in back in those days where my dad lived, there was still two six right there.
Okay.
So when I hit the corner, I seen them and they saw me. So I tried to run and they stopped me. And then they took my hand. They're like, "Oh yeah, you're a SD, you're a donor." And then they jumped me, and I ran. Right, I went to Smiley's house, and Smiley, he's like, "What's wrong? What happened?" When I told him what happened, I just remember him closing his door, and I'm hearing his mom yelling at him already by that time.
Right.
And I see this kid coming out with a gun in his hand, and he ran around that corner, and man, I just heard them gunshots. That's when I already knew that my life was gonna change. I already knew that it wasn't gonna be the same.
Man, yeah, that's crazy. So here, basically, you like the defender, I guess, in a sense, the protector wasn't even in your own home. Like somebody from the hood, I guess, right?
Yeah, I mean, like tragically, like as you mentioned, and I remember one time I even told this to my mom, like my parents, my mom grew up in a pueblo, Mexico, and my mom, she wanted to give us what she said what she never had. But I used to tell my mom like I would give up all the things you bought me or anything you think you could buy me just to have you in my life. You know what I mean? And tragically, most parents, we try to give our children everything what we felt we didn't have instead of giving them what we really didn't have. You know what I mean? Or our parents giving us what, you know what I mean? Like what they didn't have in the sense
Right.
that, I mean, my mom told me her childhood wasn't that good. You know what I mean? Like, and I always say this myself: I'm a father. I got two kids.
Right.
I'm the father that I wanted. I'm not the father that I had. You know what I mean?
Gotcha. Yeah. So you know what? It's like I guess the mentality like back then is like, man, we got to provide for our kids. We got to give them the best. And like you mentioned, your dad full-time job, part-time, and your mom having to work. And like unfortunately, man, sometimes it took like two paychecks, right, just to try to pay the
Yeah.
rent, put food on the table. But like I think what you're trying to say is like, man, you just wanted their presence, maybe just to spend some quality time with them.
Yeah, I mean, like, when I was growing up, I'll see kids with their dads, or I'll see like my neighbors, with their family, and we didn't have that. My parents rather work, and I understand them. Now as an adult, I mean, I understand them. I can't judge them, because I'm a father myself too, and I've came to realize, man, that It's not easy being a father.
Yeah.
It's easy it's easy to make errors and and make bad mistakes as to how you should, what kind of parent you should be with your kids. But it's not easy.
Yeah, it's definitely not, And I guess they tried, they tried to give us the best. They were working, I'm sure, for you. And I guess like compared to like having like a deadbeat dad that wouldn't work or do that, you know what I'm saying? I guess that's like the other
Yeah.
extreme, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, and it's funny because, like, I used to, like, my parents, though, they bought me, like, the first Sega Genesis, and then I believe came out, like, Super Nintendo, and after that, they bought us, like, the PS1. But since I was always inside the house, like, I just wanted to be outside, so I never played with any of them stuff. I didn't go,
Right.
I used to have them, but I never played. I didn't care about it. I just wanted to be free. And
Yeah.
when that thing what happened with Smiley, with when he shot, I remember like he came back running and he told me go home. Someone's gonna go pick you up right now. And I was scared. I went home and I'll never forget. I got a knock at the door and someone I never knew before. And they
Okay.
asked me like, and I remember like my brother was arguing with somebody at the door. And they're like, oh, and my brother said, what little boy? He like, that little boy, man. And I seen, and they're like, hey, you're that little boy that hangs with Smiley. I was like, yeah. They're like, oh man, can we talk to your brother? So my brother's like, do you know them? I was like, yeah. He's like, okay, well, who are they? I'm like, I don't know. Well, they're my friends. And they told me, oh, you know what? We need to speak to you. And that's when basically they gave me the rundown. What they told me what it was. That I remember I left with them and they had this little meeting. And that's when they told me, that what it was, that I mean, that was the point of no return. That basically, if I didn't join, those Tuesdays were automatically already going to think I was an SD, so they was already going to come to retaliate.
Right.
And so, I mean, I made the decision, to join. I mean, as a kid, what you're doing is not right. You know that, but you just don't know how to say no. You know what I mean? You don't know how to say, you know what, this is a mistake. I don't want to do it, but so you go along with it,
Right.
And that's what I did. I went along with it, and that's why I started gangbanging. I mean, at first, I was scared. I didn't want to participate in the stuff that I was seeing. But after a while, like even the guys that were around my age, because after like when Smiley brought me in. Smiley just basically let me roam free,
Gotcha.
because Smiley was always older than me. So I started hanging around with the guys around my age. So we started hanging out more, and little by little, man, I started. I can admit now as an adult, I was a coward, like I was
Okay.
scared to say no, but I did things that I didn't want to do.
Right.
So I remember one time, the Kings had came by, and they had shot at us. And my friend Barney, rest in peace as well, he stole his dad's gun. And he's like, man, let's go shoot at them. And right away, naturally, they're like, who's going to do it? And me trying to impress friends, I said, I'll do it. They're like, no, you sure? No, don't worry, we'll do it. And I could have left it at that, man. But like I said, I was scared. I didn't want to lose friends. And so I decided to do it,
Gotcha.
And after that, it just became one of those things a habit where something happened, I wanted to partake in it, because
Okay. Yeah, man.
I
So
didn't want to.
yeah, it's like, man, you gotta almost like prove yourself, especially at a young age.
Yeah, I mean, and then after a while, like it becomes to a point where like you start like it becomes a habit. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like I never understood. I mean, like I've learned like gang history, and it always fascinated me. What always fascinated me about gangs as a kid is that they started as kids. It was, whether it was whichever gang could be, they one point they started 12, 14-year-old kids, whether it's in the 40s, in the 50s, and even 60s, they were all kids.
Right.
And they built something that I wonder if had they known it was going to get to that big, to the extreme that is now, would they have started it? You know what I mean?
Right.
So I've always been fascinated by it, and
Okay.
So like I don't know, like after a while it just, like I said, it just became more routine,
Right, I got you. Okay, man. So you're young, you're into it. Could you take us maybe through those later years? You're becoming a teenager. What do you start getting involved in? What begins to happen in your life?
Well, when I was like 14, man, I got caught sleeping by the Ambrose, man. I was DOA. I mean, it was me and my friend Barney. We were hanging out, and it was on a weekend, and it was just me and him. And I remember like it was like six dudes with baseball bats. They told us they were maniacs. So we fell for it, you know. We approached them, and I just remember they started dissing us, and I just saw everything black. And I still remember, you know, and it's funny because I didn't know I was DOA until I went to the hospital, until I woke up. The doctor actually told me, because I was only like 14, and I'll never forget his words. And he told me that he had no moral obligation to tell me anything. It's just that his son, he had a son that was my age, and he told me that, you know, it hurt him to see me, you know, the way I was, the way they left me. And he showed me the ambulance report, you know. And I'll never forget, you know, because it's a crazy experience, man. Like, everything was so black. And then I felt my body so light, and I could hear myself talk, but everything's black, and I'm yelling at myself to wake up. I'm thinking I'm knocked out or I'm sleeping. And at that point, I thought that I knew I was dead. You know, I was screaming to God, crying that not to let me die, that I remember telling him that I was a little kid, please don't let me die. I started seeing a little white dot, and that little dot started getting bigger. And as it was getting bigger, I felt my heart racing until I felt something sharp, and that's what woke me up. And come to find out, that's when they had put the defibrillators on me, you know.
Man,
but that didn't really slow
crazy.
me down. That didn't slow me down. That basically, like, I grew up hating Ambrose, you know. I hated them. So, you know, I mean, I just was, you know, quick to pull the trigger, you know.
Gotcha. So basically, man, that DOA, dead on arrival, and instead of like, man, making you change, it probably drove you deeper into the streets, huh?
Yeah, I mean, because you create a hate, man. After like
Right.
your friends passed away. I mean, I still remember like when I first came around. I remember like hearing about Cubby, rest in peace. But I mean, I didn't know him, and I guess he was like the first one that had died out there on 59. And then I started hearing it was my boy Javi, and then my boy JD, and then Pac Man, and then when you start hearing more people like passing away, like you get like an anger, you know what I mean? Like, you just hate them. You want to go there and kill them, you know what I mean? Like, for no reason,
Right.
without knowing them, you know?
Right. Yeah. Because of the loss and basically it's the loss and the pain that you feel that it makes you want to like make them feel pain in a sense.
Yeah, and to be honest, like I don't know, like growing after, like, you know, being like so deep into it. Like, I grew up in I'm glad I grew up in the days that I grew up at, you know, like I had good leadership, you know, from my friends. And when a lot of them started going to prison, I started getting older, so I started applying what was taught to me. You know, I tried to organize things, and eventually I did. You know, eventually I got it together for my whole neighborhood, man, for 59th Street. You know, a lot of the older guys stopped coming around. It was chaotic, and I mean, I did what I thought was my duty. You know, I mean, like, I'm like, man, too many of my friends had died for this neighborhood just to let it crumble like that. So I started trying to organize everybody again. You know,
Gotcha.
and
So you basically like step in, start doing this. Does this eventually lead you to get into like legal trouble or like
no, well, like, to
no?
be honest with you, like, I've always been smart. Like,
Right.
I never like selling drugs because I've always been an addict. Apart from that,
Okay.
I just never like selling drugs. But like, I got caught with a gun once when I was a teenager. I was actually gonna go pull a mission, and well, we got caught. You know, so I mean, I did like 3 years in Little Joliet before I came out.
How old were you like when you went in and
I was like 16. I came out when I was like 19.
gotcha.
Yeah. I mean, I've always been in and out of juvie on my since I can remember. I mean, I think I've been more in juvie than as a child than I did spend it on the streets. Like, I didn't graduate 8th grade from Eberhard. I got I got expelled, and then from there I went to like the audio home, and I graduated there because I was already old. They told me that I couldn't be. I was already like turning like 14 and still in eighth grade, so they just gave me my diploma just because, you know.
just to get you out the way.
And no, and they literally told me that. I
Right.
remember, I'll never forget. They invited my mom to have like a parent teacher conference, and they told my mom that the only reason why I'm getting a diploma is because I'm old and I'm too old to still be in elementary. So they told me, congratulations, you have your diploma, but you don't deserve it. And I didn't care at that time,
Right.
you know.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, like I said, I mean, I've always been that type of person. Like I used to just love game banging, man. Like everything about it, you know, like being there for my friends. And I always felt like I had to be a leader, you know, because I felt like that I had so much knowledge passed down from me, from my friends, that it was like my obligation to do the same, you know?
Gotcha. Okay, man. So you're out there. You're deep into the streets. Like, to what age were you there, and basically, what happens that leads you to where you're at now?
Well, I mean, to be honest, I never stopped gaming, man. So ICE picked me up. Like, I don't know. It was, I guess, like around that time Obama was leaving. I think I'll never forget. It was on August 2016 when they picked me up.
Okay.
I had just, I had just eaten, I had just gotten locked up the week before that. But the week before that, I got locked up. I mean, ICE picked me up. I got locked up for game banging because
Okay.
I was, um, I was eating breakfast on 59th Street, and I'm walking home. I seen a car full of amps, so I threw a brick at them. And when they came back around, the cops came and they snitched on me. They said that I broke the windows, so they locked me up for disorderly conduct and aggravated battery and for gambling. And then a week later, man, ICE picked me up. I didn't even think they were ICE. I was hanging out in my backyard with my neighbor. It was my day off at that. Um, they were dressed like homicide.
Okay.
They come to the gate, and with their hands drawn out, they're asking us, you know, what's our names, and I'm like, who are you looking for? They're like, what's your name? I'm like, I'm not gonna give you my name. Who are you looking for?
Right.
So they asked my neighbor who she was. She said she was a neighbor. They're like, no, just come with us. We'll explain everything later. So I'm like, nah, man. Like you guys said, you know, I have a history of assault, man. I'm not just gonna go in there like that with you guys, man. So he tells his partner like, hey, you know, bring his file. So when he shows me my picture, he's like, this is you. I'm like, yeah. He's like, you're a gang member, right? I'm like, nah, I don't gang bang no more. He like, you belong to a gang? I'm like, yeah. He like, well, you have an immigration warrant. I started laughing. I'm like, what is that? He like, it's against the law to be undocumented gang member. Like, what? What do you mean? So he tells me that I violated the Domestic Terrorist Act.
Whoa.
But I didn't even pay attention that
Yeah.
once he's telling me that, I'm already inside the car, man. Like when he was, you know, they were telling me the whole scoop. They was already, you know, leading me
Right.
into the back seat. So, yeah, I mean, it was a nerve wracking experience, man. Like I did a year fighting my case, man, and
Right.
I mean, it's a year of they flew me all the way to Louisiana, then from Louisiana they flew me back to Wisconsin. It was just, oh man, you get tired, man. You
Gotcha.
know, they
So you basically you fought it for a year, and that what ends up happening at the end, I guess.
Well, I mean, I got deported. They deported me for life. You know, they said that I had a lawyer. You know, and to be honest with you, what I feel what nailed me was the my gang tattoo. You know, because I had custody of my kids. And then even to get custody of my kids, I had to do a lot, man. I had to like go to programming for DCFS, and I did everything that they asked me to. So I had DCFS writing me letters that, you know, that the kids were better in my care. I mean,
Right.
and then I had a lot of support from my community. But I mean, like in closing statements, the Homeland Security lady, she's like, Your Honor, if this man has changed, then why does he still got gang tattoos showing his allegiance to his gang? And my lawyer he couldn't defend that. You know, he
Right.
couldn't even argue that.
Gotcha.
And I couldn't either when they asked me the same thing, you know, like how come I still got him? I just stood quiet, you know, and they got me deported. And I didn't even
Man.
know I was deported to life until I signed the papers, you know.
Man. So what would you think? I'll probably come back later, huh?
Yeah, I figured like, hey man, 5, 10 years, because everybody, that was my only case is my only charge because I don't have any felonies. My only charge is violating the Domestic Terrorist Act.
Man,
That's it.
that's crazy.
But I guess it's. But I mean,
And I think back then they had just came out with that law, right?
yeah,
Oh,
actually, because like, I guess Obama, like when they grabbed El Chapo, man, they called all gay members from Chicago domestic terrorists,
gotcha.
and so I'm an undocumented domestic terrorist, so that's even worse, you know.
Right, right. Okay, so basically, man, you fought it, you lost. We're part of Mexico that they send you to.
Well, they always back then like they were sending people like wherever they were close to or from the place they grew up at.
Okay,
I grew up. I mean where they were born at. I mean, I was born in Guerrero, so the closest place would be Mexico City, and that's where they left me. They took me in the airplane. I got to Mexico City, and that was it, man. I was on my own, you know.
man.
I was on my own.
Did you have any family like to go to or? So basically, what happens? They fly you there, or they bus you there, or what?
No, they fly you there. You know, they fly you there, and then like the Mexican government gives you like a bus ticket to go, close to where you're actually born at. But I have like I had a grandma, who just recently passed away like 2 years ago. Who I mean, like I knew her and I met her because she went to Chicago like once or twice, and not trying to be disrespectful, but I didn't really. It's not that I didn't like her. I just didn't care much for her, because
Gotcha.
I didn't grow with her.
Yeah.
And so she told me that, like she has her home if I want to go, but at that time, and the cartels was pretty. I mean, it's still pretty bad here in Mexico. There's places where it's extremely worse. You know what I mean? Like where you just avoid it if you can.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So what were those few months like? I guess as you're trying to get yourself together out there.
Oh man, it's crazy, man. You know what? Like now, now that God has led me to where I'm at. I mean, I look back and I just laugh, and I remember certain moments, and yeah, it puts a smile on my face, and because it was difficult, like here Mexicans, they know when we're deported. They know it, the way we talk, the way we act, they know it, and some of them prey on that. Some of them
Okay.
prey on that, and and so it was a little rough, because they don't know you in Mexico, and they don't know you. They don't want to know you.
Oh
And
yeah.
the only thing they want to know about you is who you are and what are you doing there. That's it. But once they know that much, they don't want to know anything else about you.
Okay.
They're very like untrusting people towards their own Mexicans.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's almost like a prejudice to those that are like from the States, ain't it? Like when you go down there.
Oh yeah, man. I mean, like the thing about Mexico, and I understand though,
Yeah.
man. To be honest with you, I've learned to value a lot of things. Most of them, like they had to really work hard to get where they're at. And they feel that people like me or people who are deported, they got it easy because we speak English. Because if you speak
Yeah.
English here in Mexico, man, you're gonna find a job that pays you close to what doctors make. And I mean, to be honest, like, cause I used to rent like it was like a house that was for like college students.
Okay.
And they used to tell me that a doctor graduating from school, he's barely making like $200 a week. That they don't really make a lot. And me being deported, I make 250 a
Gotcha.
week, and I didn't have to study. I didn't have to struggle, pay for for my schooling and anything like that. I speak English, so any call center will hire me.
Okay. So when you first got out there, is that like one of the first jobs you got, like to get yourself? I
Oh
guess.
no, no, man, because I didn't know nothing. I didn't know what a call center was. I
Yeah.
didn't even know how to get an ID. I didn't do none of that, man. And I worked on some bogus jobs on here, man, making like and it's kind of sad, man. Like I said, I've learned to appreciate, man, because
Right.
minimum wage out here in Mexico, and we're talking about like what do you call those, like factory,
Yeah. Yeah.
or even in construction, you're making like $70 a week, man. And it's and over here they work 6 days a week, 48 hours a week.
Right.
and that's mandatory, you know.
Man, okay. So is that
So
some of the first jobs you got, like labor, like construction, or what?
yeah, my first job, man, I was making like $55 a week cleaning on chicken coops, like where they slaughter the chickens.
Oh, no way.
That was my first job. Yeah, that was my first job. And so, man, we got because they robbed us. They made us work an extra day, which was the only day we have off, and they didn't pay us for that day, just in order for us to get our paycheck that they owed us.
No
So we're
way.
all like, man, we quit. Yeah, and then I started working construction, man. And oh man, I learned right here, man. Construction out here, it's rough, man. And I was barely
Back
making
breaking.
like, man, I was only making $60 a week in construction. I was making 1,300, 250.
Right.
You know, it comes down to like 60, 65 a week.
Okay.
Those are my first jobs, and then
Right.
but then I worked at another construction site, and I was making like $70 a week. But I actually liked it, to be honest. I like working construction, and because I didn't even know nothing about call centers. I didn't even know what downtown Mexico City was, or even Mexico City. I used to live in the state of Mexico.
Okay.
Because it's really huge, man. Mexico City, and then downtown Mexico City they're like three different places, man.
Okay.
All mixed in one, and it's very huge over there. It's really big, you know. So when I ended up working at call centers, I met a lot of people from like California, people who were deported, you know, and and I felt like I was at home, you know.
Oh,
I,
yeah.
I felt like I was, yeah, I felt like I was back in the States, you know, like man, like speaking in English all
Right.
over again, you know, and around the same atmosphere. And when I got deported, I mean, I didn't know what to expect, you know,
Right.
and even as a kid, even growing up, like I never imagined myself like going to church or even talking about God, you know, even giving praises to God, you know. I've
Right.
always had that intimate relationship with God, but like I used to treat God like he was like my wife or my partner, you know, because I used to always just cuss at him when things went bad. I used to, you know, yell at him, and I used to always feel the presence of God, even when I was game banging, you know, like you know, I feel God like telling me I shouldn't do things, and I used to always just, you know, curse him out like, oh man, get that off my head, and you know, and I used to get mad because God never wanted to never left my side, you know. So I
Right.
never imagined any of this, you know. And
Gotcha.
when I when I got to Mexico City, like I I did I want to say I did the mistake of wanting what another person has, you know.
Okay.
I started like in Mexico, like people here, they express their love for one another more in a more intimate manner than the States. You know, in the States you see two people kissing, there's always gonna be that ignorant, that childish person be like, oh, go get a room,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
people get embarrassed. You know, here, man, you'll see old people walking around holding their hands with their hands in their back pocket, kissing like you know. And we're talking about old people, you know, kissing like if they're, you know, like they're teenagers. But it's beautiful when,
Right.
I mean. When you love somebody, I mean, when you're affectionate for somebody, you know what I mean? You display that affection, you know? So I started seeing that around me, and I missed it. I didn't miss having a girlfriend or anything, but I missed my kids.
Yeah.
I missed my mom, you know. And the first Christmas came around, then the second, and the second was pretty like it wasn't the same as the one before, and then the third one was even worse. And that's when, like, after that, like, depression hit me really hard, man. I felt easy to surrender to my addiction, man. I just
Okay.
started, and then drugs are very cheap down here, you know,
Okay.
very cheap. So I fell into my addiction, and then I messed up. I tried something that I never tried before. It was crystal meth,
Oh, man.
and yeah, when I tried that, man, I respect that. I always respect anything that knocks me down. You know, as
Right.
a man, I can wake, I can get up and say, hey, you know what, man, you know, he rocked me good, you know. And that's one drug, but you know, that's one drug that I can say, you know what, man, that drug knocked me down. I respect it, but from a distance, you know,
Right.
I don't want it nowhere near me. I wouldn't even try to fight it again, you know, because I know I'll lose, you know.
Gotcha.
And then I just, you know, then when the epidemic came around, like I was already really sprung out, so I lost my job, and then I ended up being homeless, man. And I've
Oh,
never
no
been
way.
homeless in my life, you know. Yeah, I've never. I don't. I've never begged for change. I've never slept on the streets. I remember, like, it makes me laugh because, like, I used to ask the bums if I could. I'm like, hey, you mind if I sleep here? Or, like, they should look at me like I was a weirdo because they used to tell me, man, the streets is for everybody. But I mean, like, because I didn't know anything about
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
and then I did the mistake of I started injecting crystal meth, and that's when
Whoa.
everything went horribly. Yeah, man. I thank God I've been clean for over a year now.
Okay.
And but it was a tough battle, man. That was, I think, I want to say that was one of my toughest battles that I've ever fought, man. And that's one of the tough, I guess, and I thank God for that now, because
Right.
that was one of the battles that made me realize my real strength. You know what I mean?
Right.
And made me appreciate that God was right there, man. Like,
Right.
you go through the withdrawals of meth. Even the withdrawals of meth are pretty bad. But
Mm.
the withdrawals when you inject it, oh, it's horrible, man. It's a horrible feeling. When I finally, and I used to always, like, I'll quit, but then I'll relapse again.
Gotcha.
But with that moment when I felt like this is it, no more. Oh man, I suffer the worst withdrawals, man. I mean, I was cold sweats, man. Sometimes I'll wake up, I have shit in my pants, or even I'll piss on myself. I mean, it was horrible, man.
Man.
I was like in a coma, and I used to always tell God, like, I wanted to die. I used to tell
Right.
God, like, just take me with you, because I knew that getting high was not an option for me. I said, it's not gonna be an option. And then, like, you don't even have the strength to even try to generate money. I used to just
Right.
sleep by the train stations, and but God, man, God is amazing because sometimes I'll wake up with no shoes, they'll rob me.
Right.
Even the old homeless people you hang around with, they'll always rob you.
Right.
I'll wake up really cold because they stole my blanket, but
Man.
then I'll wake up some days, man, with uh, with brand new shoes on my feet, with a blanket. I always woke up with food by my side, and I mean,
Man.
if that's not God, I don't know who is.
Gotcha. Man, that's crazy,
But
man. That's like a man, like a whole journey you took to. Hey, okay, could I ask you this? So you're going through that.
yeah,
Is this right before I met you through the Bible study, through the Ron Strong Zoom Bible study? You
yeah.
went through Brother Dean. What was this right before that happened? And maybe could you share the story of what happened right before, like, you ended up where you're at now?
Okay, yeah, that was actually right before, like,
Okay.
cause like I used to see, I had reached out to Dean, but I don't know if he knew that was my Facebook, or I don't really recall much, but it was a very short conversation,
Okay.
and at that time, I just felt like, I'm like, wow, I'm really forgotten, my whole past is erased, so I felt that, back into getting high, and when I decided to really just let go of all the drugs, I mean, man, I was like so skinny, man. I think, God, man, I mean, like, you could see used to be able to see my rib cages, and oh man, I was very, very, very skinny, man. I looked like I was skeleton, man. And I broke down, and I started listening to God, and I cried out to God with the intentions of accepting the help, how He was going to give it to me, not how I wanted. Like I tell a lot of people, like, we always pray to God to give us this. We always pray to God for this, but we get mad when God responds. He gives us what we pray for, but He doesn't give it to us the way we want it. He gives it to us the way we need it.
Amen.
You know what I mean? But I was ready when I told God to please help me. I was ready to do whatever it took. And that's when I pray to God, like, man, I wanted to die because, man, it's 30 days of just, your bones aching, your insides, and then your brain. And then after a while, like, you shoot up your veins where you don't even see your veins, but then, like, your brain will tell you, oh, like, you'll get a memory of getting high. You start seeing your veins and you feel that rush and you want to get high, but, I wrote it out. And I had called a friend that I've always kept in touch in Chicago, and I told her, what was going on. I told her that I knew that I was gonna die if I was gonna stay in Mexico City. I told her that I was gonna keep getting high, or I was scared that that I just suffered the whole withdrawals, and I was scared that if I was gonna stay there, I could relapse. So she told me she would help me out, but I had to go somewhere where it was touristic. And she's like, why don't you go to Cancun? So I tried Cancun, I mean, I bought me a ticket, I went to Cancun. I didn't know what was going to happen with me, I just
Right.
knew that, hey, you know what? That's where my friend sent me, that's where I'm going. When I got to Cancun, there wasn't really much work. So I went to Playa de Carmen. And when I went over there, like, I went, like, with the intentions of, living a different life. And I started working, selling tattoos to the tourists.
Okay.
I was I used to work at a tattoo shop. And then I started working with the tourists. Giving the tourists some tour guides, and but then they had stopped selling the tour. Well, they prohibited people having like little kiosks on the main street, like on Main Street. So
Right.
I lost my job, and my boss at the time, well, he was a cartel member, and he offered me a job.
Okay.
And I mean, first I said, yeah, at first I told him, let me think about it. And when I started seeing like the, I was running out of hygiene products, I didn't have no more money. I got scared. I got scared thinking that I was going to go back to, being a bum or being homeless. And I didn't want that.
Right.
At that time, I didn't trust in God enough. I just knew that God had saved me, but I did not trust that God was going to, still be by my side. I
Right.
didn't have no faith in God.
Yeah.
So when I just realized that I didn't even have no deodorant, I didn't even have like 5 pesos, man. 5 pesos don't buy nothing out here,
Right.
But I didn't even have that. So I got scared, and so I went to my own boss and I told him that, yeah, that I was willing to work for him, and he set me up with this club, and he gave me my own work, and man, it was me and 3 guys, and man, I mean, it was I was living a life that I didn't even live in the States, because I was living
Gotcha.
right by the beach, tourists, so much money. I mean, I was averaging like me myself taking home. I was still taking home like $300 a day. But then I started relapsing. I
Gotcha.
started getting high again, but not with meth, but with cocaine.
Right.
And then like over there, when you still got to pay the cartel, you still got to pay rent.
Okay.
And then me and we were a 3-man crew. And this kid that I had met from Chicago, Mexico City, started, hitting me up, telling me that if I could put him on, and that he was hurting. And me, I was trying to help people. I told him, hey, you want to work? Come down here. So they actually, we sent some money for him to go down there to Playa de Carmen. And this kid eventually robbed us, but
Oh
we
man.
couldn't prove it. It
Right.
was just, yeah, like, cause the cartel will come and they'll give us packs, they will
Right.
give us, like 20 grams of this and 10 grams of this and that. And come Friday, they'll come and then they'll cash out the drawer.
Right.
And they kept count of everything. They kept everything was written down, so they wanted their money. And
Right.
then the money had to be the same as the inventory. And when it wasn't, oh man, we all got wood, man. Over here, they paddle you down there,
Oh yeah.
and it's not a nice feeling,
Man.
I got paddled like 3 times, and then so I was, and then when after I got paddled, the cartel said since we can't prove who stole the merchandise, we all had to pay, and it was a lot, man. It was like this guy got it for like $2,000.
Man.
And it's not a lot, I guess, in the States, for $2,000 to come up within 2 weeks down in Mexico. I mean, you really have to like hustle really hard,
Right.
And then right after that, I get picked up by the state cops.
Okay.
And those are the most crooked ones down here in Mexico, man. They kidnapped me for like 3 days, man. They were torturing me. It was a very horrible experience, man. Like I tell everybody, man, I never knew how badly I wanted to live life until I felt like I was gonna die.
Man.
That's when I knew I didn't want to die. When you feel like you're about to die. And what ended up happening is that they, after the third day, when they saw that me and one of my friends, we weren't talking, they planted drugs on us.
Man.
So then my boss, when he found out where I was at, he went and got me out. So I
Okay.
was already in the hole with him again for another dollar. So I was in the hole $3,000. And so they gave me a week to pay it. I didn't have it. I'm like, where am I
Right.
gonna get $3,000? I didn't have it. And I didn't have it. They went to my apartment. And man, it was, again, they roughed me up a bit. And they were talking about either I had to give them a finger or give them the money. And I didn't have it. So they was about to chop my finger off, but I guess I don't know, something about me. My boss, like, you know what? It's all right. I need you to go to work. So you know what? He told me go, rough them up. I'll tell you when to stop. So I mean, I'm over here getting. I mean, these are sicarios, man. These are hitmen, bro. These are not like regular kids or regular people,
Right.
man.
Right.
These are people who are trained to know where to hit you where it hurts, man.
Man.
And it felt like it was forever. They left my whole face like, man, I don't like, my whole eye was shut. My whole face was just so swollen. And he gave me a week to pay them. And I was scared, man. I really knew I wasn't going to be able to pay them,
Right.
And I reached out to them. He told me up front, like, man, I don't have 3,000, bro. He
Right.
like, I don't even have 1,000. He like, I could help you with a plane ticket.
Right.
And he did, he sent me $100, and then I had reached out to one of my other friends that I had met down there from London. I told him what was going on, and he told me, man, he used to call me Chicago. He like, Chicago, you got to get out of there, man. He like, man, I'll send you $200, but I don't want to see you in Playa.
Right.
So he did. So I already had like $300, and with that, I bought a ticket, and I got out of there, man. I was scared. I was very, very scared because, like, it's a cartel, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you figure, like, yeah, you can run, but for how long,
Yeah. Gotcha.
And so when I got to Mexico City again from Playa, but I was scared being back in Mexico City because I was like, man, I knew that's where my addiction started, and I didn't want to go back to that. So I told Dean I wanted to go to TJ. So Dean sent me another $100. And I got to TJ. And I remember when I got here, I didn't know what was gonna happen with my life. I didn't have no plans. I didn't know what was gonna happen. And I just told God, like, I trust you, and just, whatever you decide is, I know it's your grace. And it's been amazing, man. Like, that's how Dean just started talking to Julio, and Julio with Mr. Humphrey, and
Right.
next thing you know, they contacted my pastor and ended up in his church.
Yeah, it's just crazy, man. Like going back to that. That's when we were doing the Zoom meetings, and I remember the first time you jumped on, your face, you still had the effects of the beating that you took, man. Like you were on there with your eye, you could still see your face was all like purple still. So like you telling that story, like I got to see like the effects of it.
Oh yeah, man. It was one of those experiences, that impacted me to the point where I don't ever want to put myself in that situation. I mean, I've been in Chicago, like, growing up, gangbanging and whatnot. Like, you see it, like, you partake in stuff. I'm not proud of what I've done. I mean, I've sinned. I've sinned horribly. But I've repented, and I feel, and I've came to accept that God has not forgiven me, has not protected me, and has not guided me just to punish me. Gotcha. I know God has something big for me, and but that experience down there was one that impacted me so much that, like, even now I don't go out, I don't go anywhere where I shouldn't, and
Hey, man. You know what? Like going back to when you first got there, and when you were in the Zoom meetings, I remember, like you mentioned John Humphrey, and they were able to through their contacts. I forget, there was like a few guys that they knew, and eventually they got a hold with somebody like in like you mentioned, like a church and a pastor that's right where you're at now, and it turned out like you were like a block away from that church, right?
Oh yeah, it was because when I first got to TJ, I had another friend that had sent me some money, and so I can get a hotel. And I got a hotel right down the street from where I go to church at. But I mean, I never knew that at the time.
Right.
And I remember it was in a weekend, and I had just gotten in. I I found on Facebook a place that were hiring a call center. I contacted them, and I was still at the airport at that time when I contacted them. It was like on a Thursday or Friday, so they had set up an interview for Monday. So that weekend, I had gone to hotel because when I got a TJ, the money that my friend had sent me, he sent it to me from bank to bank. So when you send money from bank from the U.S. from U.S. bank to a Mexican bank, you gotta wait 5 days before it clears.
Okay.
So I mean, I had money that I couldn't touch, so I just went to the airport and for whatever reason they didn't kick me out. I was just in the waiting area, man, for like a whole week.
No way.
I slept at the airport for a whole week eating. I was eating like peanuts because I only have like 200 pesos. So I'm like, man, I'm gonna need protein, so I just bought peanuts, and that's how I survived now, man. Just peanuts. Man. And so when my money did clear, I got the hotel. And that morning I woke up. I'll never forget. It was Monday morning. I woke up. I'm eating my breakfast. And that's when Dean contacted me. He's like, hey, you know what? We might have somebody who could help you out. The cousin of this ex-sheriff, that his cousin's a pastor there in TJ. He like, I believe he's like down the street where you're at. Oh, because he asked me like where I was at, and I told him. And he's like, yeah, he's like, you're down the street from him. He's like, you know what? They're going to call you like around 4. So I'm like, okay. So I went to my interview. My interview was real quick. I went in there. I talked to them. They said, okay, can you start tomorrow? When can you start? Right. I said, I don't know, when you guys want me to start. They said, okay, well, you can start next week. So I'm like, okay, cool. And I mean, and it was already like barely 9 in the morning. So I'm like, okay, I'm waiting on this call till 4 o'clock. So I was just, in the streets, just laying down in the grass, man. I really didn't have it. I didn't even have no more money left. I just had like a little bit of money. And I get the call, and it was my pastor, and he sent an Uber for me, and he just, asked me a little bit about my past. I didn't want to tell him anything about like what happened with the cartel or anything like that. I just told him that, that I had gotten deported, but, then now I'm here. And that's just how I ended up being at the church. I mean, at first, like, they never used to, like, they used to tell me, hey, do you want to come to services? But I said, I'm like, oh, I'm working. I mean, like, me, like, I always, like, felt like, okay, they opened the doors for me. My job and my only job was to make sure that I got on my feet right away and leave,
Yeah.
That was my plan. So I was always working. And, but, it didn't turn out like that.
Okay.
One day, like, a church member invited me to church, and I don't know, like, I went because I felt obligated. And that's how little by little, I just started going back.
Gotcha. Hey, can you tell us what ended up like happening in this process? I know you said, obligation, but eventually did something happen like on the inside of you? Like in your heart?
I started understanding everything. Okay. Like, I felt like, and sometimes I used to get a little embarrassed or I'll get mad, and I'm like, man, like, I used to think my pastor was talking about me, like, but indirectly,
Yeah.
And I'm like, man. So I'm like, man, what is he talking about? Or why is he saying it? And then, like, at first I used to struggle, like, I couldn't pay attention, or I'll just, get bored or I'll fall asleep. But there was always a service where there was like a key point where I felt like he was talking about me.
Yeah.
And it grabbed my curiosity, and that's when I started actually reading the Bible more, and I started looking back, man. When you look back at everything, like I said, man. I mean, I've gone as low as eating out the garbage, seeing things that most people won't see, and I've reached lows that I never imagined I would reach, but like, just when you look back, I mean, I've only been out here 6 years, man. It's been amazing, man.
Okay.
I realize, I will always have memories of my friends and everything, but this to me just in the past,
Right.
I've been blessed to still be alive when a lot of my friends they weren't so lucky,
Right.
And And I'll never forget, to be honest, like, I've always felt that God was calling, was been always be trying to get my attention. Like, there was one moment where I almost killed a guy, and but I thank God for that moment that, you know, I couldn't put a trigger, man. I couldn't do it,
Right.
and I always remember that, you know. And
Right.
now I thank God that through this experience, I can help somebody. You know what I mean? Like, if I
Gotcha.
could help somebody, or impact their lives, it makes
Amen.
all this experience worth it.
Okay. You know, could you share with us? You know, like, we're getting ready like to close out, but could you
Okay.
share like where you at now, like as far as with God in your life, or maybe just share, you know, like what are you doing right now? How has your life changed, and what do you see for yourself? I guess like moving forward.
Well, to be honest, like now, like um, my life is now. I'm in that point where I feel like I'm barely growing up again. You know what I
Okay.
mean? Like, I'm not the person who I thought I was, and the more and now I see, like, I don't know myself because I'm not who I was. You know what I mean? But I am still learning, and God is very. It's very hard to ignore God's signs once you already know how to see those signs. You know what I mean? So I see God still working in me. Like I said, I just work. I finally got me an apartment with my girlfriend. I wanted to get baptized, but I can't because um, I'm living in sin. You know, I'm not married. You know, and That's one of my other goals, is to either be single and live life accordingly, or get serious with this woman and get married and do it the right way. You know.
Gotcha. So which way are
But
you
yeah.
leaning right now, if you don't mind me asking? We'll put you
um,
on the spot, man.
that's a tough one, man. That's a tough one, to be honest. Like, I got just because, like, I'm not the same person I was, you
Yeah.
know, and I understand the unification between a man and a woman. You know what I
Right.
mean? It's not just about a man taking care of a woman, or a woman just being out taking care of her man. I mean, it's a unification where
Right.
it's one body, it's one being. You know what I mean? Both have to be on the same level. Both have to be same state of mind spiritually. You know what I mean? Um, so I mean, I am glad that through me, like, when I met my girlfriend, she had like little quarrels with God, her own personal, you know, issues. And, she always tell me, like, how can you follow a blind faith? Or, she's criticizing that because I used to, tell her that I wanted my goal is to keep on walking this Christian path,
Right.
how God intended.
Right.
And she used to criticize me, but I came to accept that, you know what, I follow GPS and I still ended up getting lost. God has never steered me in the wrong direction. You
Right.
know what I mean? And I'm glad that now she doesn't see it that way. Now, like, she's actually a member of our church now, and
Okay.
she goes faithfully. And actually, yeah, like, in 15 minutes, I gotta do my Bible study. But
Okay. Oh yeah. Yeah.
like, I'm grateful, man.
Amen.
It's a beautiful path, man.
Hey
It's a
man,
beautiful path.
I'm glad. I'm glad to hear that, man. But at least you're seeking God, she's seeking God, and man, I'll be praying for you guys that God, make it clear what direction you should go. But do you have any like any final words you want to share? Because this podcast is gonna go out there. Maybe there's a young man
Yeah.
that's been through similar situation. Some of the same experiences. Like, is there something that you would want to share with those people that are gonna hear this?
Um. Well. First, I want to thank everybody for listening. I'm sorry if I kind of bored people with my
Oh
life,
no, man! Hey,
but
hey, you know what? Hey, trust me, man. Your life is not boring, man. It's a man. It's been like a roller coaster ride that we took with you, man.
of course, yeah. So all I can say is to everybody, man. The kids, seek out God, man. He does listen. God gives us what we need, not what we want, and that our needs are always better than our wants, man. You know, God does not abandon, and God does not put us through hard moments to punish us. It's to bring us closer to Him. That was told to me at a very young age, and I couldn't understand that. I used to think that God, every time I was in jail, every time I was going through bad times, that was God punishing me. But that's not God punishing us. That's God bringing us to Him. Why? Because tragically, only when we're going through bad times is when we reach out to God. You know, thank God for everything. You know, be grateful for what you have. You know, and put your full trust in God,
Amen.
because ultimately it is God's will.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Hey, Juan, did you mind closing us out in a prayer, man?
Um, all right, okay. I really, don't pray like that, but
Okay, yeah.
okay.
Anything the God places on your heart, man. You basically it's just you talking to your heavenly Father, man.
Okay, well, Heavenly Father, I want to thank you for this evening. Thank you for the opportunity to share the moments that I lived, the experiences, God. God, I pray that you bless everybody. You bless Omar and his podcast. That bless him for all his work that he's doing, and that everything that everybody has been through. We all have a story, God. No past is worse than the other. We've all cried. We've all you know we've all overcame, and it's all through your glory, God. Thank you so much for loving us so much, and I pray that you bless all the family, God, and bless everybody in need, God. In Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen, brother. Thanks a lot for coming out here, brother. I know you mentioned you got to go to your study, man. So we're gonna wrap this up. Hey, Juan, God bless you out there, man. May He continue to provide.
Likewise.
May He continue leading you and guiding you, brother. So with that, we're gonna close out.
Likewise, man. It was a real pleasure, Omar, and keep in touch, man. Thank you for the opportunity, my brother.
Amen, brother. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Wrong to Strong Chicago. Matthew 4:16 reads, "The people who sat in darkness have seen a great light. And upon those who sat in the region and shadow of death, light has dawned." My name is Omar Calvillo. I am Wrong to Strong.